We need to do a whole range of things, but I think it starts with us recognizing that when a woman is abused or when a child is abused, it is not their fault that it has happened. The first thing we do is blame the victim. She must have done something. She must have done the wrong thing. She must have found herself in the wrong place at the wrong time. Why is she now saying this? The issue is, what happened to her? Was it right or was it wrong? Did she deserve it? So when people know that it's not their fault, then hopefully they will be empowered enough to come forward to say this is what happened to me. Secondly, for those who are parents of children, listen to your children. Because if a child comes forward with a report about an adult behaving towards them inappropriately, from our experience of being involved in this work, 9 times out of 10, that child is telling the truth. And in the Bosola movement, I shared a story of what happened to me when I was a little girl, when my mother brought home a relative from her hometown to stay with us. We were all young then, I was around 10 at the time. And he was sleeping on the mattress on the floor with my brother. He was putting the bed covers off me. The first time he did it, I thought, okay, maybe it was a mistake. The second time, then the third time, I pretended that I was asleep and allowed him to pull the covers totally off me. And then I asked him, what's going on? He said nothing. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. And first thing in the morning, I went to tell my mother. By the time I got back from school, he was gone. My mother believed me.
Okay.
My mother did not ask me, are you sure? She did not judge me. She did not yell at me. She didn't raise her voice. She asked 1 or 2 questions just to be sure that I hadn't dreamt it. And then she acted. By the time I came back from school, he was gone. And everyone is close to their mothers. But as I've grown older and as I've realized the implications of that step that she took in my life, I have such a strong bond with her. Because if she had not believed me, it means further down the line I would have been subjected to abuse.
And you would not be able to talk.
And I would not have been able to talk because I raised the concern and I was I was not ignored. So people need to listen to their children. And then, as I said earlier, there's so much impunity. We need to bring an end to impunity or at least minimize it. The rate at which we are going, women will be stopped literally on the streets as they're going about their business and they'll be stripped and assaulted in broad daylight with witnesses. And nothing will happen because it has now become such, women and their bodies have become such fair game. And we have a lot of young men roaming around on the streets now, frustrated, unemployed, on drugs, always drinking something with no hope, and they see women as fair game. Yes. So if nothing is done when there is a violation, then it is going to keep happening. And you asked the question around how people get silent. Yes. Once every one of us agrees, regardless of the position we are in, that we are no longer going to live with a culture of silence. We need to break that culture, then we will all be able to take action. And each and every one of us has a point of leverage. As parents, as teachers, as policymakers, as opinion leaders, religious leaders, we all have a point of leverage that we can use to ensure that we play a key role in this.
And hopefully the judicial system also has a huge role.
That's one of the points of leverage I'm talking about, when it comes to impunity. Because if you're a nurse or a doctor in a hospital and somebody has been brought in, and we heard about that a couple of weeks ago, a young victim was taken to the hospital, and the verdict of the nurse, she didn't examine her, she just took one look at her. This one is pretending she was not raped, nothing happened to her. How has she used her position to help solve this problem? So a case where you can't even get the adequate forensic evidence, or where you can't get people to come forward to give credible testimony, how do you expect that case to stand up in court? How do you expect the judge to make a ruling on that? So we all have a role to play. And we have a lot of women's organizations, a lot of human rights organizations who have been campaigning on these issues day in, day out, who have been providing frontline services for survivors. Whatever it is they're doing is not enough because they're inadequately funded. And that's where donor partners come in. That's where our governments come in. The government of Ekiti State, for example, under Dr. Fayemi, we take our role as a government seriously as far as these issues are concerned, and we've been trying as much as possible within the limits of the resources that we have to put certain things in place. So, for example, the Gender-Based Violence Prohibition Law has a provision that does not exist even in the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which is a federal law, and that is we have a survivors fund. And with that survivors fund, we help women who have gone through violations put their lives back together again. And during the JKF 1 period, we used that law, for example, to send some women back to school who wanted to go back to school. Some were able to rent apartments for themselves with their children for them to have a new start. Some were able to use the support we gave them to start new businesses, and that we were able to help 70 women who had just survived years of violence abuse get back on their feet again. There was a small number of those women who went back to their violent partners, but because we were able to empower them in some financially in some way, they are able to do things for themselves, and those violations no longer exist in the relationship. Yes, and unfortunately, when Dr. Fayemi left office as governor, those measures were not followed up. The gender-based violence law was not implemented. The committee that has oversight of implementing the law and administering the fund did not meet in the 4 years that Dr. Fayemi was out of office. So it is only last week, 5 years after the last meeting of the implementation committee, that the committee was resuscitated. We are all passionate about the well-being of our people, and we have different things that we're passionate about. And so what I think is important for me to do is encourage my colleagues to focus on what their passions are. Some of them are passionate about issues to do with women's health, specifically cancer. Some are passionate about sickle cell. There's one of them who has a focus on special needs children, and there's some who are passionate about agriculture, for example. All of us are passionate about poverty, issues to do with poverty, and so we're working on one thing or the other, or children's issues. So I believe that all of us have responsibility to use these positions we have found ourselves in to advocate around the issues. And we don't all have to have specific projects or organizations to address these issues. So maybe what you might want to do is lend your voice and help mobilize a whole range of resources to push the issue. But in most cases, it is usually advisable to have a platform, and that could be through an organization or through a network or coalition to push any agenda you feel strongly about. For me, as long as we are able to put our voices behind these issues, to amplify them, to serve as role models, or to serve as a source of inspiration to other people, I think that's what is important. Well, as if you've noted a thread in my answers since we started the interview, I believe my forte is advocacy. And so what I can do is to lend my voice in areas of issues of concern. The state is very concerned about the health and well-being of citizens, and through the Ministry of Health, a whole range of programs are in place to ensure that healthcare services are accessible to all our citizens, particularly those who live in remote areas. And a lot of attention is being paid to primary healthcare facilities in the state. Now, I'm particularly concerned about the level of complacency, lack of access, and in some instances ignorance around non-communicable diseases, such as cancers, or a whole range of cancers, the gender-specific cancers, such as breast cancer, cervical cancer, uterine cancer. And because for many women in local areas, when those symptoms start to manifest, they are attributed to witchcraft, somebody putting a spell on them, and so on. Many do not make themselves available for screening, because sometimes the screening is not even available. And even when it is available and they make themselves available and they're told that there are some things that need to be done, then they go off to pastors or herbalists, and they do not come back to the medical centers until sometimes it's almost too late. So I'm concerned about that. So everywhere I go, I talk to our women and advocate with them to try as much as possible to pay attention to these issues. I'm also chair of the Ekiti State AIDS Control Agency, Ekiti SACA. So I have a role to play in ensuring that we have adequate policies and also implementation mechanisms in place to address HIV/AIDS through its value chain in the state. And I'm thankful that that is one of the things that has remained constant in terms of what's happened over the last couple of years. When we left, Ekiti State had the lowest prevalence of HIV/AIDS in the country, and we still have it now at 0.8%, and we want to keep it that way. So during the JKF1 period, we established the Funlayo Aduni Diagnostic Center to try and see what we can do around early detection of cancer, and that was set up in memory of my late friend and the former deputy governor of Ekiti State, Mrs. Fumi Olayinka. And before we left, the center have done a whole lot of work. It's still there. It hasn't done as much as we would hope really can do, but it's an opportunity for us to re-engage and recommit resources to the initiative and ensure that many of our women in the remote rural areas can benefit from resources such as that. But sensitization and awareness on an ongoing basis using our local government structures is key to that, and I'm going to be playing a key role in that. And that's the reason why, for example, I met with the spouses of local government officials last week, as well as the community development officers who are supposed to be in charge of those programs at community level.
WFM 91.7.